All right, guys,
That's
Brent
right.
Thiessen, President and General Manager of the Kansas City Mavericks, aka my boss, is joining me today over Zoom, as we have done many a times over the last couple of weeks, as we all are home from work, working from home. You know, we're having these conversations because COVID-19 has been such a wild card. We've never seen anything like this before, and I think the more information, the more conversations we can have to just kind of try to make sense of it, you know, the better. And, you know, the more information we can provide our fans, the better. So really where I want to start this conversation with you is, you know, going back to that March 11th date, that's really when everything started to swarm in with, you know, cancellations, suspensions, you know, pauses of seasons. I want to go back to the first conversation, the first moment you knew that COVID-19 was going to, you know, really impact the ECHL season.
Well, I think, you know, it goes back a little bit further than that, in the sense that, you know, we started getting these reports that, you know, the virus was out there, and, you know, it was starting to have an impact. And you know, I remember a conversation early that I had with Matt Magana in ticket sales, and just kind of expressing a concern, not really knowing who could possibly know what was to come, and really just trying to foreshadow, you know, our business and what was going to potentially really affect what we were doing. And as we kind of fast forwarded time, you know, I remember being on the phone with several members, peers in the Kansas City area that you know, run buildings, and including our building general manager Larry Holbick, and just talking about some of the events and some of the acts that were going to be coming through. And you know, there was some serious concern as to whether those events would go on as planned. And also Mike Young, who's involved down at Bartle Hall, and you know, just talking about you know, what craziness we were all really experiencing. And it really hit home that this is going to be something that significantly affects us. Talking then with, you know, city officials, government officials, and just seeing, you know, really what this was going to mean to us. You know, it kind of culminated into a call with our league, that we decided that the best course of action was going to be to suspend our season. I know at that point in time, you know, we had a home game coming up right away. And so, you know, it was really important for us to obviously communicate with our fans. And I think at that point in time, you know, the reality had really kind of sunk in with us. But I don't think it necessarily had resonated with everybody, as far as the fans and everybody. There was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of question marks about why we would cancel a game and that sort of thing. And I understand that, and I get that. I think that speaks very highly to, you know, our passionate fan base. But we did, you know, we did make that call to suspend the season, and it quickly escalated that to a cancellation. And we were one of the first leagues to actually cancel our season, because we looked at the map and we looked at, you know, the hot spots, and at the time Ohio was really being hit hard, and affected several of the teams in our league. And you know, it was a situation that was escalating very, very quickly, and really got to the point where, you know, we started putting out scenarios for how we could possibly move forward, and get the games in. I mean, no one wanted to cancel. Of course, that's the worst case scenario for not only us, but for every team in the league and the league itself. And so we you know, we spent hours on the phone, just talking about different scenarios and different possibilities that, you know, we could look at in order to keep the season and potentially continue play. But it became quickly apparent to us that, you know, with the areas that were affected and the lockdowns that the governors were putting on the different areas, banning events, you know, I think it started at a couple hundred, and then it went down to 50, and then it went down to 10, and it became very apparent that putting on games in this environment was just not going to work. And even if some teams could in areas that were maybe hit harder or less hard, it wasn't going to be a way that we could actually feasibly finish the season. So it was a difficult conversation. I mean, I can tell you there was a lot of emotion. And that's not a decision that's made very lightly. It was certainly one that, I think was disappointing for all of us on the phone and involved in it, because that's not how we want to end the season. That's not how we want to say goodbye to our players. You look at, from a Mavericks standpoint, you look at Rocco Carzo, who announced his retirement, and my heart goes out to him, because I don't think any player wants to end their career on that note.
Right.
So it's a tough situation for everybody around, everybody involved in it. But I think the most important thing is that we made a decision that was in the best interest of our fans and players and employees, as far as keeping them safe and healthy throughout this process. And as you look where we are today, obviously, of course, it was the right decision, and of course we were abiding by mandates by the governor and by government officials, and so there wouldn't have been a question about it. But back then, it was definitely a situation that was highly emotional and obviously very disappointing for everybody involved.
Right. And I mean, as you mentioned, it's a situation that nobody had ever experienced before. So it's not like somebody could step up and talk from experience. Everybody was going through this at the same time for the first time, and getting to a decision that brings, such a heavy burden now onto, the teams, the league, all of these leagues, nationwide, worldwide. This is affecting, businesses everywhere, every industry. Getting to that decision that was, such a large magnitude, was there direction from above? What conversations were had with the AHL, with the NHL? Were you guys being, given direction as to what they were going to be doing, or kind of talk me through, the partnerships?
Yeah, I think that we were obviously looking at, I should take a step back. When you look at our league is obviously one that we have a place in hockey. We're the AA, if you want to call it, place of that is our place in the hockey world. And that being said, of course, we have players that are NHL contract guys, AHL contract guys, and so of course we work very closely and hand in hand with both the AHL and of course NHL teams, our affiliates. And as part of that, we were watching very, very closely to how they handled the situation, and of course, with some of our players being property of those teams, anything we did had to be really hand in hand, and so the coordination that was there was remarkable. And I think what was remarkable about it is exactly what you just said, is that there's not a playbook for this. I think when we first started those conversations about suspending the season and then canceling it, I don't think anybody could have possibly envisioned this situation and really anything out there that would postpone our season. I know that over time there's been various things that have happened in this market or that market, or in this building or that building, but nothing is widespread and obviously that covers the entire league. So it's working hand in hand with them. When the NBA canceled their season or suspended their season, I should say, that was a huge turning point, I think, for everybody involved in our league. I know there were a couple of events that actually paused before the NBA, but once they did, then the NHL, I believe, followed suit quickly after. And they're still on pause. And when you look at their season, the economics are very, very different. It just did not become feasible to be able to keep what we had going and drag it out further than what we actually had. So it was a decision that yes, it was very much impacted by the NHL continues to be. I mean, as we look forward and of course the season now is behind us, and we turn the page to next season. But that clarity is something that we're still trying to gain, and I think everybody's scrambling to get that clarity daily. And I know it still changes. It's still a fluid situation, and we're anxiously awaiting how the NHL moves forward and how they're going to finish their season, and then consequently how they're going to start the following season. And that greatly affects us and the decisions that we have to make as well.
Absolutely. And, wanting to talk, more about the ECHL as a league, and, you're very involved, being on the governor's board, involved in making decisions, and, being one of the leaders of the league. How is this, everybody can make a guess that it's impacting all teams, but, how is the ECHL combating this and making sure that they're still putting, the next right step forward, which, who knows really what that is, but what are they doing to ensure that, whenever the next season starts, that, we're able to pick up the pieces and continue on as the ECHL?
Well, I think first and foremost, it needs to be said that we're still putting a cap on this year, and we would be in a playoff situation as far as the dates go. Playoffs in the ECHL would be going on as we speak. So, it's a situation where, of course, we sent the players home immediately to be safe first and foremost, and to try and get them home, because during that time also all of these travel bans were coming on, and getting our players back to Canada across the border was something that was incredibly important before they closed the border,
Right.
which we were able to do, but just kind of in the nick of time. So, players obviously, lost some weeks of paychecks and some revenue, and that was something that the ECHL made an effort, along with the PHPA, the Players Hockey Association, the Players Union. They did a great job of establishing a player relief fund, and really trying to help these players through those lost 3 weeks of revenue, especially guys that have a family and we're counting on that revenue. So, I think that the first way to answer that question is, still putting a period and a cap on the year that we just had. And then the second part of it is to look forward and to say, how are we going to move forward, and what is this going to look like when we come out of this? And the one thing that I would tell our fans and tell everybody out there that's listening is, we are in constant communication, daily discussions with the league. We're monitoring, obviously, the situations at the NHL level, as we've discussed, and seeing how they're proceeding. We're talking with our buildings, seeing when acts and different shows and what they're hearing as far as when they're going to resume, and what that's going to look like when it does resume. And I think that, everything that we want to be optimists. We want to count on next season and starting on time. And we believe that that's what we're planning for at this time. But I think we also have to be realists in the sense of having that dialogue and being flexible to the point where, things may have to change, and those changes are going to be more clear in the weeks to come. But we do recognize the need to be flexible and potentially make change where we need to make them. I mean, it's been a pretty devastating thing for our entire industry. The Mavericks and every team in the ECHL, but we're no different than a lot of other industries. I realize that. But economically and through this has been a very challenging time, and so we know that next year, there's going to be some decisions that have to be made that are going to be very, very difficult and challenging. But I think everybody's prepared for that.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up this conversation, something that you've been in the sports industry, the events industry for so long, and this is such a uncharted waters event. What has been, I know I'm going to take so many things away from this. It's devastating to so many families worldwide, financially, or, some are losing members of their family because of this. It's devastating on all fronts. what are you going to take away from this experience, and hopefully put the next step forward and continuing on, in your career and leading the Mavericks?
Well, I think that's a great question, and honestly, I think that I'm still in it, in the sense where you're still battling and still feel very much in it. Things are happening so quickly, and just because we're not in the office, it doesn't mean that things aren't happening around us and
Right.
going a million miles an hour. So I do think that when we do come up for air and there is maybe that sense of normalcy that everyone kind of talks about, I'll have an opportunity to kind of reflect and to look back on some of those things. But the biggest thing for me right now is to take care of our people. The players, the employees, the staff. I know that there were a lot of really, really good events, the MAC Awards that we weren't able to put on, and that's something that a lot of people worked really, really hard to make sure that event was going to be really, really, really good. And that's disappointing, and it's devastating. And when you put it in perspective, it's everybody's safe and healthy, and that is the most important thing. But it's just to try and help our people and to be supportive and to be kind, because it's not a situation that anyone has any experience with, as you mentioned. It's not something that there is a playbook for. So you know what? You just try and be supportive wherever you can. You try and help people through it and be patient. And honestly, I hope that everybody takes that away. I hope that the world's a little bit better place when we do return to normal, if you will.
Yeah.
And everyone's a little bit more patient and flexible in how we do business and how we move forward. It is something that I think we can all learn from.
Absolutely. And how special and, privileged will we be to, be one of those things that whenever normal life or whatever that's going to look like comes back into play, the Mavericks is going to be something that people get to look forward to again. And they get to, get excited for when our schedule is going to come out or coming out to the arena. And, we'll ensure that the arena is, a safe place to be. So, I think that's going to be one of my takeaways, is just how cool it is to, honestly be a part of something that people genuinely look forward to. And I think that's just something that I, didn't really take advantage of before this. So, doing the best that we all can to just really digest this every day at a time. Conversations like this, I think, help me. Hopefully they help our fans who are watching. And obviously you were on the front lines of this, not only for the league, but, for the Mavericks. So I appreciate you kind of letting me pick your brain and, walk me through all the craziness. And hopefully, one day we can all get back into the arena cheering on the Mavericks, the arena that's behind you.
That's exactly right. And, we will be there and we will get there. And I know it's a process, but you know what, right now it's important that everyone stays safe and healthy, and we listen to, our government officials and health officials, and we get to that point where we can all get back to enjoying this together. And whenever that is, we will be there and we'll be ready. And we will, it will be a great day. As you mentioned, it'll be a great thing to be a part of. And we definitely realize that this is going to be an escape for people and someplace that they get to kind of go and celebrate. And we're anxious for that day, whenever that day may come.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Brent. Enjoy the rest of your work day from home. I know I will, and I'll probably see you again on Zoom sometime soon.
Thanks, Lydia. I appreciate it.
Bye.